Ego Hour acknowledges the traditional owners of the land upon which we record, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation,
and the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation.
We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging.
Get down, it's Ego Hour. It's Ego Hour.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Good Brother.
And I'm Lil Silky.
And welcome to Ego Hour, the show where we deliver objectively true film reviews. Start the timer for me, Tom.
Anything said over the next 60 minutes will stand up in a court of law and any subsequent re-releases.
These reviews are non-negotiable,
Non-refundable.
and nondescript. So, let's talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Released on the 18th of March 2021 in the US, Zack Snyder's Justice League, also known colloquially as 127 Hours, is a story of a fan base fighting against the evil forces of industry pressures, cut downs and reshoots. Directed by, well honestly, I couldn't find out who directed this film. The film was made on a budget of $70 million, plus $300 million for the original release, clocking in with a runtime of 242 minutes. 242 minutes! The film may just leave you wondering, is this the most culturally significant moment in superhero film history outside of Spider-Man 3?
Okay, huge podcast. I mentioned when we did Kong vs. Godzilla that we were doing this the week after, but we've had a busy week.
Things came up.
You want to say why we've been busy?
What's been happening? Well, let's get context first.
Let's
invite our guest.
All right.
Boy, I got a surprise for you tonight. We got a guest.
So this is a very special episode because we have a fellow podcaster on the show.
Yes.
Well, not yet.
A future podcaster on the show. We have our good friend
I've had visions. I've had post-apocalyptic visions of
Dani's
this podcast.
So
it all
please-
changes.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Dani.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Very nervous. So,
Yeah.
Dani's also a consistent listener. She doesn't listen to every episode, but she listens to more than the average Joe.
So she's the third biggest listener of the podcast, obviously.
I try and watch listen to the ones that I've seen the movie of.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, I kind of don't want to have it spoiled. But yeah, no, I love the pod.
Well, thank you.
So
I
good to
appreciate
hear.
that.
And so, yeah, Dani is in the midst of creating a new podcast titled
Big Thoughts, Little Minds. It's with our good friend, Bella. And it is a history podcast where we grapple with topics and we try to make a coherent and concise summary for just the everyday listener. It's just meant to be a bit of fun and a purpose for us to get together and talk shit and learn some new things.
like all good podcasts.
Yep. How do you... Oh, if
no,
we
you
can
can.
ask. Yeah. So how do you inject yourself into the podcast? What's the...
What does that even mean?
Well, I mean... Okay.
I'm just like, really?
As a podcaster, what's the Dani and Bella spin?
It's that our friendship is shining through.
Okay.
We play off each other,
Huge.
hopefully. Yeah, because she just comes up with the best one-liners, and I'm just like, I could definitely work off this. So yeah, no, it's just we've been friends for 14 plus years, best friends for a really long time. We know each other so well, so it's just listening to two mates talk shit, pretty much.
Fantastic.
That's it. That's the pod.
Yeah,
Hopefully it will come. We just keep on having a couple of delays.
we've been dying to do a crossover episode with another podcast, so we're very
Yes.
excited to be doing that.
Yeah.
And I won't count this as the proper crossover because Bella's not here.
Yes,
and we will
no.
do one with Bella, definitely. This just kind of came up. I mean, this is getting into the context of this. I got to say that up until the week it came out, I had very little interest in watching this because I was I haven't seen the original one, and Tom hasn't either. And I saw that it was going to be...
All I remember about the original was our cousin Ethan being like, I saw the Justice League. Pretty bad. And Superman's lip was weird. I just remember that.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
And then there was because I saw that it was going to be 4 hours, and I was
Were you 21 in 2017?
I don't think so. No, I was 22.
Okay. I feel like I saw him the year it came out. It was after maybe it was one of your gigs.
Yeah. Anyway, and then it came around, and I'll be damned if I didn't get sucked into the hype about this thing. And I think it's, like you said in the intro, it's a big cultural moment. So it's pretty fun. And I'm not a big superhero guy. But this got me
that's still a
excited
lie,
to watch
though.
a superhero movie, I have to say.
We're not superhero people, but we're also superhero people because, like, we know more than the average Joe. We aren't.
But do we? The average Joe has seen, probably 70%.
We're not all in on
plus.
Marvel. That's the point. We were there at the start. We liked Iron Man.
Do we have the same opinion on all of these things?
Yeah, I think so. We liked Iron Man. We loved Iron Man 2 with Mickey Rourke. No, but Avengers felt important. I remember that.
And we saw that in the movies together, I think. Yeah.
Geelong in the Village Cinemas. That was nice. And yeah, so then we got, just kind of lost the pizzazz once they started churning them out. And I remember Captain America not being good. That's my take. People like Captain America, but I didn't.
The original one.
Yeah. Any takes, Dani?
I've been watching the Marvel movie. I am a superhero fan. I am a DC superhero fan. I enjoy the Marvel movies, but not so much anymore. They are following the same recipe. Like, since Winter Soldier, there hasn't been, like, an amazing, other than probably Ragnarok. And I am not a fan of Endgame at
What
all.
don't you like about it?
Well, that's another podcast in itself.
Come on, give the
us
listeners
a couple
something.
points.
Yeah.
Give us something. There's so many plot holes. They butchered time travel. What else? It was so long.
But you liked part one.
Huh?
You liked part one.
I loved part
See,
one.
that's funny to me.
Part
because
one was really good.
personally, I preferred part two because part one felt like, oh, look at all of our shiny toys moving on screen and epic pose before fight and stuff like this. And then number two was like actually doing something. I actually kind of enjoyed two because it felt like the most out of all of their plots in the last few years. It felt like something was happening and there were like stakes and there were things. Whereas the other, and I know that they were obviously going to win, but like as opposed to the other ones, because I guess my hugest problem with extended universe stuff, and like it's not superhero movies, it's it's superhero movies in the context of extended universes. It's that the problems probably just aren't that big. It's like, how can you have the biggest world-threatening threat when the actual biggest threat is coming in the next team-up movie? You've got Thor fighting Angelina Jolie. No, not it is
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett, that's the one. I'm getting what's that movie where she Maleficent mixed up because they look like the same.
Armor,
Yeah,
And they both
they're
have green
wearing
backdrops.
the black and the black hair, and they're both looking badass. I can see it.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, the biggest threat ever. And then it's like, not really. The biggest threat's coming in the next movie.
Yeah, but that's like superhero movies. Like, what do you want?
Spider-Man. I want Spider-Man. As I've continually said on this podcast, Spider-Man is my favorite movie superhero. And Batman. Batman's my actual favorite superhero now because like as a kid it was Spider-Man. But the reason it's Batman now is because you got the cool, like the gritty stuff's pretty fun. Like it is cool that they can do legit dark themes and I'm not saying that other things can't, but Batman has these good graphic novels and video games. Anyway, that was the thing I was going to go into for. But I'll just quickly finish this point. I'm tangenting already. Spider-Man stays within his universe. He fights villains that are on his level. The city is threatened rather than the world. The Spider-Man scope of do bad in and do good in is...
Spider-Man is like one of the
context.
best Marvel superheroes because, and especially for a young audience, it's who you connect with because he is like most kids that were watching or Spider-Man and reading the comics, they were nerds themselves and they like could picture themselves if they got superhero powers and they can envision themselves as Spider-Man. And like he's just a kid trying to live his life and enjoying his powers and then every now and then having a bit of trauma. So there's tons of reasons why Spider-Man resonates with people. And my favorite adaptation is the Tom Holland one. That is one of the best Marvel movies. The Homecoming? Yeah, that one. Not Far From Home. Far From Home wasn't good either.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting that you come on with such a bad take, considering that the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films are actually the best films ever, outside of superheroes as well. So,
Spider-Man 2, actually, I think I've watched with Dr. Octopus.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I've watched that maybe 50 times. It was like
that's
one of my
huge.
go-to. That and Lord of the Rings, they were my go-to childhood movies.
Yeah.
So yes.
Okay, good to hear. Reassuring.
Where did this point start? Your point is that you think the stakes aren't real in cinematic
Yes.
universe things. Yeah.
Which becomes very present in this Snyder Cut, but
So, yeah, we were going through context, and basically I wasn't hyped, and then it kind of rolled around. I was keen to watch it, and I was talking to Dani about watching it, and then we all watched it together. And the night we watched it, we waited for Tom to get home from work, knowing that we had a 4-hour movie ahead of us.
I was late to work, and I asked to leave early so that I could get home for this. So, you know, what you got to do for the pod and what you got to do for the Snyder Cut.
And we had soft drink ready, and we're just trying to stay up. And it was a late night. And
It felt like very 16-year-old sleepover. Like I hadn't had in a long time. Eating popcorn, eating ice cream, drinking Sprite.
Having intermissions, keeping up those energy levels to stay
Yeah.
awake.
And it was really fun. I'll talk about how long this movie is, which originally sounded like the worst thing ever to me, but now I'm totally on board with it being 4 hours. I just think, particularly Tom and I watched the original version, or the 2017 version last night, and particularly watching that, I'm just so in on this being a 4-hour movie, I reckon. And I'm usually a person who gets quite tired and bored during things. Maybe not bored, but ready for things to wrap up.
Yeah.
But this was a good event and kind of fun to stick it out for, I would say.
I think it's those intermission breaks that he put in you could break it up and you could just all right, get up, stand up, move, stretch. They used to do it a lot more in older movies like Sound of Music. They had a massive intermission in it, and we should bring those back when we're doing super long movies like that. I think there could be.
And the thing is, this is a 4-hour movie that's taken advantage of being 4 hours. It's not we did Kong vs. Godzilla, and it's that wasn't super long, right? But that's a 2-hour movie with lots of padding. 2-hour movie, and there's not 2 hours of Kong fighting Godzilla. Whereas this film has, every scene in this film is him trying to put some extra Easter egg in, some sort of actual information to digest, which makes it tiring, but also more engaging, I think. It's not completely bloated, I would say, in that way.
Yeah, the form of media is changing before our very eyes in this streaming era anyway, as we've alluded to a bunch of times on this pod. But I think it's a great point that you raise, and I'm sure just putting in the parts gives you a time to literally pause the film. Because how many times are you watching a film with a group of people and you're like, I need to go to the bathroom, they need to go to the bathroom, and you're just guessing where halfway is, and you're trying to go, okay, at the end of this scene, at the end of this occurrence. I wouldn't be surprised if in this streaming service era where we're going to get more and more long form things, at least in the form of television series, but then it's just fascinating because this film is a television it's a movie which they turn into a television series which they release as a movie, because they were going to release this as a series at one stage, I'm pretty sure, and that's why there are the different parts, because they were going to go 40-minute episodes or something
on
like
HBO.
that. Yeah.
I'm kind of grateful that they just went for the movie.
Yeah.
I think I would have lost interest if it was.
They would have had to edit it differently. They would have gone teaser at the end of episode 1, teaser at the episode 2.
But this is what Marvel's doing right now. They're making single series for people, but they're effectively long movies, I guess, right? With WandaVision and the
because the production
Winter
value
Soldier and
has to be where it was. So because that was the difference. That's the main thing that's divided television from movies is production value. So I haven't watched them, so it's kind of not that meaningful of an input from me here. But Smallville, I know existed, and or the Flash show, and there were other Supergirl.
so many
There's
more.
the Flash. There's Arrow. There's DC Legends of Tomorrow. I don't know. What else? Lucifer is technically a DC TV show.
Yeah, I was shocked to hear that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic storyline, and that goes into more of the DC dark and the magic universe, which is also a really expansive part. There's also Supergirl, there's Batwoman, there's tons. I've seen a lot of Green Arrow, I've seen a lot of The Flash, I've seen parts of Batwoman and parts of Supergirl. God, I've watched a lot of TV. It's actually quite embarrassing when I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen all this. And I'm like, what do you do? Parts of it. That one, it took too long for me to get into, but I've heard that it's good by second half of season 1.
But what I have to say is when there's so much content and you're a fan, what are you supposed to do? This is you haven't even you've watched plenty of it, but you haven't even scratched the surface of if you want to have seen it and experienced all of it, right?
Yeah, no, I guess you got to pick and choose what you watch. I also watch WandaVision. I'm not going to bother with Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's hard because and now we're only talking about live action. We haven't even talked about animated yet, and we haven't actually talked about the original source materials. There is so much. And then if you think about secondary media, you have all the YouTube videos and all of the exploration of that. There's just so much information out there, and it's a lot to digest. And this is just one thing out of the nerdy world.
Yeah, and you've got to have this middle ground where you're introducing these new things that it's exciting and people are like, oh, it's that baddie, or it's like, this is at play now, but also not too much where everybody becomes redundant because there's a million characters and none of them really matter in the scheme of things. And, you know, comparing, there's the 2017 cut to the Snyder cut is that the Snyder cut is so much world building and so much about Easter eggs and like teasing new things, which even for someone who's not even invested in the DC universe, I found like super exciting. Like the fact that there's no dark side in the original one feels so weird because we watched the Snyder cut later.
So here's a big disclaimer. Why is this podcast worth listening to? Because we watched the Snyder cut before the original cut. That's our 10-cent.
So we're not saying
take.
this is better compared to the other cut. We're saying that's our reference point is the Snyder cut. That's what it is in my head.
Yeah.
So
anyway, continue.
I mean, I don't really know what I was saying, to be honest. Just the fact that I think Darkseid wasn't in the 2017 cut
Which seems important.
Very weird considering how integral it was to the Snyder cut.
Yeah, I definitely see why he didn't do it initially, because he got so much. I think there was a bit of flack for introducing like two different villains in the Batman vs Superman, and it was
Luthor. Who was the other dude?
Luthor and what's his name?
They can't all be called Dark.
No. Why can't I
Juggernaut.
remember? No, wrong one. Oh, what's his name?
Dr. Endo.
I can't believe I've forgotten it.
He has like a menacing
1 second.
long word name. Anyway, I'll Google it while you keep
it's
going.
something godly.
Doomsday.
Doomsday. See, Doomsday and Darkseid, it's easy to get those mixed up.
Yeah, no, it's Doomsday. Sorry. That I had to Google that.
But it's like, how is Doomsday not your main villain? Like that with a name like Doomsday.
You've said that, right?
Because Doomsday is... It is correct. Doomsday is the only one that can kill Superman and kills him, and they both don't even die at the end because they have this weird Kryptonian rejuvenized whatever it is. But Lex Luthor is his main villain because Lex Luthor is just the constant like thorn in his back. Same as Joker's to Batman. It's just always that constant hum in the background. And Lex Luthor is brilliant. He is so smart. People are always like, Batman's a genius as well, but Lex Luthor, like, in the comic world, Batman's like a level 8 genius intellect.
Wait, this is a real thing?
Yeah. And Lex Luthor is a level 11, I think.
Goes past 10.
How many levels are there?
11.
Did
11
he
or 12.
devise this formula
11 or
himself?
12, and he's up at the top, and he's like combating with people like Brainiac. And
Do we have
like,
references? Are there any fours?
Any references? What do you mean?
Like any
Reference point.
scale?
The scale, yeah.
Yeah.
Batman's like, what? A genius.
Batman's rich as his superpower is the line from the film.
He's Superman. Yeah, well, that was... I didn't like that line because he's...
It was in both cuts, I will note.
It was in both cuts because, like, yes, he's money, but his, like, massive superpower is the fact that he's the greatest detective of all time. That is...
Something that they never do in films, but apparently will be doing in the Robert Pattinson one, I've heard.
Exciting.
I'm excited for that. That actually does look quite good. But, yeah, I don't know. The average Joe is, like, I don't know, 4.
Which, do you know, is this in one law or is it like canonical
This is
and in
canon
everything?
law, I think.
Okay.
I feel like really...
Do you know where you would have read this? Or
YouTube.
You can't
Okay.
question everything.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to say,
no.
like, it must have been from one text where they went, he's an 8, he's an 11. And I know that they would have said it to make
Because,
Lex Luthor
like,
seem like...
If you go in and type in, like, smartest people in the DC universe, it'll come up with Lex Luthor as Brainiac, Lex Luthor, then, like, Mr. Terrific, and then down the list, and, like, Batman's, like, 8 on that list. There is all these other people smarter than him.
Yeah.
So,
In terms of character development, you wouldn't want Batman being an 11, though.
Well, Batman's
No.
got to be...
You need to have flaws as
Yeah.
a superhero. It's easier to make it's better to make your villain the smartest, rather.
Yeah, and I don't... Like, I saw Batman vs. Superman in cinemas. Were you with me?
Yeah. Only gold class session I've ever attended.
Yeah. We didn't buy any food, though. No, sir.
But we reclined.
But I remember enjoying it.
Because we were right down the front. And I remember getting home and checking Rotten Tomatoes, and it was on like 100%. And we were like, whoa, was that good, guys?
Oh, really? 100%. I remember there was that meme going around where it was
IMDb
an
had it at
interview
9.
with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, and the critic brings up like the bad ratings, and it zooms in on Ben Affleck's face, and it's like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." Yeah. So I remember kind of enjoying that, but like I'm not crazy about Jesse Eisenberg beyond being Mark Zuckerberg, and I didn't particularly. Did you like him?
Is
as Luthor?
Social Network canon in the DC Extended Universe?
I mean, I don't like it. I think it's because I prefer the animated versions that I've seen of Lex Luthor. I understand what they were trying to do, especially because they were probably playing off the social media. Like the new billionaires and like geniuses are these nerdy little awkward tech Silicon Valley boys.
But who does that appeal to? Like, who's the
No one.
Who's the audience that like goes, "Oh, I hate snotty." It's got to be older people.
Shouldn't we talk about how like Dark Knight 2008 kind of ruined superhero movies for a few people, like including DC? They had a total identity crisis. They're like, we need to ground stuff in reality now. You can't do comic booky stuff. You have to make things relate to reality. So that's what that character is doing. They're going, oh, he's Batman in the real world. He's fighting against Lex Luthor, who's a tech genius, rather than, I don't know, he's like bald and has like strong
He's not bald.
eyebrows
He
and
gets
stuff
bald.
like that.
He gets bald at the end, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't that. No, but I
like-
mean like as in the comics and
right,
stuff.
sorry.
But like Lex Luthor had a change in the 80s. He was originally a scientist. He's been around for years, like decades. And then during the 80s, they changed him from a mad scientist, a genius scientist, to a businessman. And that coincides like with the rise of Wall Street and all that whole stuff. So like he does have this changing persona. Like it is, there's precedent, let's just say that, for changing his identity. I just don't think it works here because I don't know, I'm not scared of Jesse Eisenberg. Are you? You're just like, and it was like almost a caricature of the Riddler, and I was like, what are you doing? Like Lex Luthor is just so.
Does the Riddler fit into the Justice League stuff much or often?
No, Riddler is like a
Yes.
C level.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask for a
like
tier.
villain.
Okay, what
Like-
kind of, because Joker's in everything. You have to put Joker in everything. Who else relates to the Justice League in the stuff that you've consumed?
So it's usually Lex Luthor. There's also in the Whedon cut when they had the whole. Did you watch that part, or did you say you didn't watch when Deathstroke saw?
Is that in the Whedon cut? Is that post credits?
Yeah.
Oh
did you-
no, we turned off by then.
So in the post credits in the
Whedon cut.
Snyder cut, it was like, oh, I'll tell you who
Right.
Batman is, Bruce Wayne. In the other one, it was we should start our own league.
Oh, right.
And I think it's called the League of Doom.
Yes.
And that's like a collaboration of supervillains that fight against them.
Yep.
And like there are members that come in and out. Lex Luthor is probably the big one. That is a constant theme in that. But other supervillains that there's Justice League form and fight against are external. So that's when you get Steppenwolf and you get Darkseid. Another one is Brainiac that he comes through, and he's an important one as well. But yeah, because I guess once the Justice League assembles, they're seriously powerful. I mean, they have Superman, they have Wonder Woman, they have Martian Manhunter, they have the Green Lanterns, and then like as soon as you start looking outside the core, like I won't say Batman, but he's still a human at the end of it, and the Flash who can time travel, and there's arguments of whether or not he's the most powerful because of his abilities. You need to power up the villain.
Yeah.
Classic
like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, that was what I was
You
going
just
to say.
the threat needs to keep on getting bigger and bigger and
Yes.
bigger, and Darkseid is the top of the food chain, and people are
ultimate.
always like, "Oh, is Darkseid as powerful as Thanos?" And I was like, "No, Darkseid's even more." And Darkseid is the original one. Thanos is the copy.
Yes, how many... Yeah, that's pretty big for some of the listeners. So
Mm.
explain that briefly if you can.
So I can't remember the story. It's told, so I might have butchered it. It was during a period that Marvel was having a bit of a creative crisis, and their main inspiration of superheroes and like supervillains were the DC comics. So that's when you get like people like Deadpool, who's literally a caricature comical version of Deathstroke, and that's when you get some of the other characters who are very similar. And Thanos is Darkseid, and apparently someone was like doing a picture of this villain trying to look at like Darkseid and like trying to like interpret like another villain that they were, and like the boss came up and looked over. If you're going to steal from DC, can you at least steal from like the good DC villains, the good DC characters? So yeah, like if you can just see it from like a comparison level, like they look, and like Darkseid is like the leader of the New Gods and Apocalypse, and Thanos is the leader of he's a Titan. And as soon as like you look into they're
both bald.
so merry.
They both wear like singlet.
And they're both really
tees.
tall and really buff, and like they kind of have a scary, like shriveled up face. So, yeah.
First bit of trivia: the actor who plays Deathstroke, was it? Deathstroke.
Deadshot's a different character.
That's Will
Deathstroke
Smith,
is a
right?
fantastic character. Huh? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wait. So Deathstroke, Joe
Manganiello. Yeah.
Flash from Spider-Man 2002. Huge.
I mean, he's also like in tons
I wouldn't want to
stuff.
find me neither.
He's in Magic Mike.
Yeah, he's in How Much Mother. All kinds of
He's around.
He's married to Sofia Vergara.
But I didn't think he looked. Yes. Yeah. I didn't think he looked like that in the film. So
Yeah, well, I mean, he
calling
wasn't
that
on
out
it
for you
long.
mostly.
I actually followed that up, to be honest.
Okay.
Did my own bit of scrolling. What were we talking? How did we get into that big thing?
One thing I wanted to say was before, this is all, just saying stuff, but before superhero movies existed, do you think, and like, I don't mean literally because they've existed forever, but before they became like the center of pop culture, do you think that these canons just existed between films, even if they weren't related? Because it seems like people always want things to compare and contrast and to file things under. So these Marvel and these DC movies make things so easy to file and make references to each other. But before that, we had like filmmakers who were making crime dramas and crime thrillers that referenced or built upon the work of previous crime thrillers. Like something like Seven is related to The Usual Suspects, besides Kevin Spacey, and like other famous cop investigations, which go back to like, I don't know, the Maltese Falcon and stuff like that. Like there was always a lore built in between films that were popular. Do you think that do you reckon that's what the cinematic universes used to be? Because obviously we didn't have the whole IP thing where everything that was ever made was based on a book or a movie or a stage play or something else. Do you think that we consumed movies in a way that made it so natural for Marvel and DC to fit into because we were already constructing canons and we like to compare and contrast and build things? And this is just a thought that came into my head when we were talking about this stuff a bit earlier. But what do you reckon?
I think that film is always counting on all art is counting on the art that came before it, right? So I guess what you're saying does make sense.
That's the nature of like comparing and coming up with something original, no matter what. Even if you're saying it's original, you're still comparing it. You're always going to compare and take media from something pre-existing at the end of the day.
It is interesting to think that, but like you're saying, does that provide the fertile ground for the cinematic universe as a concept?
Because it's just like film. It's like one company realized, hey, instead of making one movie, let's make 3 movies. That seems to be like the turning point in this thing where they're like, obviously sequels like blew out in the 80s and 90s, where you start getting like Terminator 2 and Lethal Weapon and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna talk about those films, like I completely understand them and the cultural movement at the time, but it's just sort of real. It's just so obnoxious that one company makes 7 movies and goes, care about all 7 of my movies, Whereas normal franchises, even the biggest, like before, like Fast and Furious is a cinematic universe at this stage. As soon as you get past 4, you're a cinematic universe, right? It's just films never dared to do that. Isn't that just fascinating?
I think there's this also with superhero films where it's like when they used to make them, they didn't trust in the source material, or they didn't trust that there was an audience that believed in things the way they were. It was always like, okay, we need to make this to a movie now, so we're going to take this off your hands and, ruin what you used to like. And that's why there was plenty of them that, flopped back in the day, I would say, or were really hated because they just weren't good films. But nowadays, they are more and more, obviously they take creative license with stuff a lot more, but they are relying on this kind of rich history of this, the cinematic, the universe that exists there already. It's readapting it to a different world. Do you know what I mean? It's all the hard yards of kind of interlinking these things has kind of been done right by the comics and the artists beforehand.
I find it interesting in Batman vs Superman, you walk through his cave, his cavern, whatever, and you see all the different suits and they make references to different lore. You see the Robin suit with ha 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 written on it and stuff. Personally, I would rather have seen the movie about that than Batman vs Superman.
Yeah, but you might.
Well, that was the hope at the time, I guess. And I guess they'll play that one eventually because I think Batman will be remade into movies in perpetuity because everyone seems to like Batman a lot.
Batman. Yeah, I was going to chuck on in the end. I just forgot at that time what my point was. I think it's also the rise of nerd culture and all of a sudden superheroes and nerdy things and all of that allowed for people to look at this stuff and be like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. It's not the geeky guy at the comic book store who's all awkward and the stuff that you see on Big Bang anymore. You have people like Henry Cavill who is a nerd who looks like that. And he's as a proud out
Where
nerd,
were
and
they?
people are like, cool.
Where were those nerds in the 50s and 60s?
I don't know. Who knows? But
I guess they just hit
being beaten down.
No,
by
they were probably bullies
society.
because they weren't.
They were bullies. The nerds were bullies.
Yeah, I'm saying that the
nerds
cool
were
nerds,
bullied.
the cool nerds were the bullies because they couldn't embrace their actual interests.
They went home and they played D&D and didn't tell anyone about it or something.
Vin
like
Diesel, avid player of D&D. That dude, you wouldn't want to mess
Joe's
with.
a D&D player as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that has definitely been part of it. And you can almost trace that back to the success of Lord of the Rings, where they first realized, oh my God, high fantasy can actually successfully work. Because they were huge.
Yeah.
They were they were a big point of changing cinematic universe, I guess.
It's so interesting. And we were young when this was kind of happening, right?
You may have a fantastic
Let you
point,
interrupt.
but I think this relates to your point. Anecdotally,
I've already made the point
Just cut him off.
so you're just going to...
Anecdotally, tell some stories about when significant nerd culture moments for you.
Well, don't have too much to say, but I remember this stuff happening. I remember all the Harry Potters coming out, and that stuff is obviously all directed at us. And I remember being this is all so cool now. And I remember wanting to buy superhero shirts and all that sort of stuff. Whereas 10 years later, it's such a different feel. You felt like you were part of something smaller, even though at that point in time, you obviously weren't part of something small anymore because you are the child being marketed to. But it felt like you were at that point in time, I think. Yeah. And I you'd play the games and all that sort of stuff, and you would get into those worlds. I don't know. It just felt like
They do seem to just capitalize on this fantastic sense of community.
yeah,
That's such a powerful part of it. It's because it's Star Wars as well.
Yeah,
I think it all
exactly.
I think everything in the film industry, the current film industry, literally comes back to Star Wars.
Yes.
That's like a thing, Every blockbuster comes back to Star Wars. Every nerd culture thing comes back to Star Wars. Every toy deal, everything comes back to Star Wars.
it's part of the success that it still feels like something that is nerdy and a little bit for yourself. You know what I mean? That feeling is still there, even though it's the most popular thing in the world. People still feel like, hey, it's this geeky thing, and it's it's my little thing, even though it's not anymore.
I mean, maybe it's so successful because because the Marvel movie is our generation as we've gotten older and we have watched all of it and then we've taught it on the people below, and the people who are going to the cinemas are people our age. Maybe it's because they got us at such a young age with indoctrinating us with Phantom Menace and Lord of the Rings and being these and Harry Potter, these kids are actually into a mythical world.
And yeah, worlds is the key word, right?
And sci-fi worlds, whether it's in space, whether it's here, where it's a medieval fantasy kind of situation. And I think they've just jumped on that and added superheroes because they're already an old pre-existing market, but bringing them to out of, with the 90s Batman movies and bringing them into the Dark Knight and making that realistic and accessible. I think a lot of people had their introductions via that. Not everyone was like me, who was like forcing my mum to go hire out the 1960s version of like with the shark repellent and refusing to leave movie world at 4 years old until I had seen Batman. Like,
That's huge.
Yeah. I was like, not everyone was like that. A lot of people's entrance into Batman was The Dark Knight. So.
Well, that's the whole brilliant thing. There's so many points of entry to this stuff. Because
Yeah.
who do you think the operative age group is? I find it, like, you did mention that we are probably in the age bracket, and I'm grouping myself with you guys, and then, like, you guys are just 3 years older than me. But, like, where do you think the pull is? Because I've made jokes on this show that the pull is in the 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds. Like, the people who grew up with Back to the Future are where this all begins, in my loose, non-studied opinion of this stuff. Because those guys, I guess, relate to Star Wars as well. But, like, our dad doesn't really care for superhero stuff, and he'll watch stuff, but he makes fun of Star Wars because he's like, it was epic when he saw it, best special effects ever, but all the stormtroopers do is miss, and like, he's still like on the outside, you know. But then,
So it's a little bit younger than him, is what you're saying.
yeah, but then Amy's dad will talk about like how good, like, he loves superheroes and stuff like that, and he'll talk about how good Star Wars was, and then all this stuff, and then I don't know. It's just like, what do you reckon the operative? What is the key age group here? Is it the 40? Is it people in their 40s? Is it people born in the 70s?
Is it every age group?
Is it John Favreau?
Yeah.
Maybe
Is that
it's
it?
like Gen X. Because they were, Gen X are the ones that grew up with Star Wars, because my dad doesn't like Star Wars, but my mum loves them. And she's a baby boomer, but maybe it was like the kids of the 70s that really like grew up with it and started to enjoying it, and like into the 80s and 90s. And then it became, because I'm guessing those kids were still a minority of people that were hardcore into this stuff. And then, because people said they went to go see Star Wars not because of like the storyline, but for the effects, and like they've never seen something like that or not. Whether or not it was something interesting, it was a big moment in cinema. Same way that the Exorcist.
Exorcist?
Exorcist.
It's like
was.
Exorcist. It's like Jaws as well. Jaws
and
is the other
George,
one.
yeah, like whether or not you saw, they were like, these are some key points, and like everyone had seen it. Whether or not they wanted to, like to, they just kind of felt they were obligated, kind of in the same way that a lot of people just went out to go see Endgame because they're like, this is really important. Same way that people went to go see Avatar because it
Same
was
way that
important.
people are watching the Snyder Cut today, right?
I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
we're watching it because it's important,
Yeah.
whether or not you are a consistent fan or if this is just something that you've been told to, like, it's really important to watch. It's part of our culture.
It's and like, being someone who's not into the DC universe particularly, I don't know whether it's just like my enjoyment of this film is to do with my affinity for like Batman as a kid as well. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I'm also excited by this because I played like Arkham City and stuff like that back in the day, and it's like, oh, this is this and this is that.
That's the launching point for us, I feel.
So yeah, it's weird. It's all just about making connections between different points of your life, I guess. And
yeah, that's can't be understated. You know, like the fact that memories associated with these characters take you back to memories. You know, like Nick talking about the Arkham games takes me back to playing the first Arkham game, which we bought like the weekend we saw Dark Knight Rises. Just because it was like marked down finally and it looked cool, and then we played it. And then like Arkham City we played over summer, and Nick slept in the back room
in front of the TV,
trying to 100% the Riddler
right?
trophies.
Yeah, funny. Not that long ago.
Yeah. Concerningly recently.
Pretty sure post high school I was doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. That stuff's huge. It can't be understated that these brands like are tapping into your memories and your moments.
Yeah, definitely. Like the logo Batman is just is as iconic as the McDonald's symbol or like the cross. Everyone knows. If everyone sees it, everyone knows what that means. Everyone knows that that's Batman, that's the Dark Knight. And like I was trying to think of like my points, and I was like, yeah, because I had mine from ever watching these, and then I also watched some animated ones, and then when those ones came out, my mom didn't want me to go see it because I was a little bit too young. And then after that, then my dad had all these like pirated copies. Shouldn't admit that, but you know, back in the day. And I would always used to watch that. And I watched these movies all about, I don't know, over 30 times. And then I watch them at least once or twice a year.
Yeah.
They're just like staples.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to watch this.
Well, we had a Batman VHS, the animated series, that was like 3 episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
that
The
I just
one
went
about,
watching.
I can tell you which one. I can tell you at least one. There's one about the man bat. Do you remember that? And he's got the recorder and he goes, test in 1, 2, 3.
But the opening of the animated series is
It's
so
iconic.
epic.
Oh, and the music.
The
Yeah. We
animated
haven't even
series-
talked about the music.
The animated series is so good. Like, I haven't watched heaps in recent memory, but like the stuff that, like, just the style and like the fact it was a kid's show, but it was so toned so well. Like the fact that they could tap into both the cool market and the, like, I remember the episode where the Joker like releases the laughing gas near everyone. Like, I think he does that a few times, but
Yeah.
like,
It's like a signature move. It
yeah,
is.
there's the Christmas one where he sings like Jingle Bells, Batman smells,
Robin laid an egg.
Robin laid an egg.
Is that the
Batmobile
one
lost
with
to
Mark
its
Hamill?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's another connection. Like, Luke Skywalker is the Joker.
Yeah,
Like,
that's got to mean something, right?
it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, his voice is just diabolical. Like,
So good.
It's so good. I mean, I'm never going to forget when I was hungover in Budapest. And
As an 8-year-old.
No. In
Your mum
recent
wouldn't let
time,
you watch it.
when my friend was making me like rewatch one of the Batman movies because that's what we were bonding over. We bonded over superhero movies, and he was like, "You need to watch Master of the Phantasm." And I was like, "Oh my god, that was a movie I watched maybe once a week as a kid, and I hadn't watched it in 16 years." And rewatching it, I was like, I will never forget that because I was like, this movie is so good. It was fantastic, and like those memories just always stay with you. The ones that you made from the past and like the recent ones.
Yeah.
Batman.
And
just brings the world together.
And when it comes up at the right time nowadays, it's like so enthralling. Like I remember being at a music festival and like going back to someone's house after, and like it was like 3 a.m. and like Batman was on TV, like an animated thing, and I was just like watching it. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like it's so good. Sometimes you just got to get caught in the right moment, and you're back in it.
Well, these what's particularly relevant is these texts don't die the same way that other films do. Because obviously films you can watch forever and ever, but something about the fact that it's Batman means that people are gonna watch The Dark Knight throughout your whole life. Like I am 100% confident of that. But then people might not. Hopefully people are watching Moonlight for the rest of your life. But there's less chance. The viewership will be dramatically different.
Yeah.
And they just live on. It's crazy.
I think it's also because there's some ease with it. Like Moonlight, you watch and you're like, it's a heavy film, and like it takes a lot out of you because it's reflective. But there's something easy with just taking yourself out and putting yourself into. It's escapism at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's just you go there, you watch it, you're out of this world and you're into theirs, and it's fantasy and it's not realistic, even though they try and bring it. But you just know that person would have been caught by too many cameras, and like like Bruce Wayne is good but not that good with modern day technology. But yeah, it's a form of escapism, and they're always going to resonate with you, and it's always going to be something that you go back to watch.
Escapism is such a hard concept for me to get my head around because I know what it literally is, but it seems like it's not all the it's a word that covers everything, but it doesn't seem precise enough for me at times. It's like I can feel escapism and I can want escapism, but I don't. When I go like I don't think my life shit, I don't want to get away from my life. It's just like for me, like escapism's all about just. Like, I wonder if it's the community thing, you feel, you don't feel alone when you're escaping with this sort of stuff. That's always about relating to other people.
But the thing is, escapism is a big word as well.
Yeah.
And there's different feelings within escapism, different types of escapism that you have from maybe listening to a certain type of song versus watching a superhero movie. They're different experiences entirely, that it is a bit of a blanket term that doesn't capture it. And yeah, this is like, there's a community feeling in superhero movies, and I think there always will be, It's different from different types of escapism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
Should we talk about the movie?
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah,
the
we
actual
should talk
movie.
about the movie. I mean,
That's a cool intro, though. I enjoyed it.
We're 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
and you were like, no, we can do it in like an hour. And I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Okay, where do you want to lead? Where do you want to land?
I mean, it's your podcast, so I guess you guys
What's
should.
the first thing that comes to mind for you when you want to talk about the Snyder Cut?
I think let's talk about the 2017 one a bit, because this is probably going to be a 2-part episode.
So you did.
So I feel like we should let's just have some thoughts on the 2017 one, Oh, actually, no. We don't have to do that, but I feel like it might be a good start.
I think it's a good start. I mean, I was always saying that this should be a 2-part episode,
Yeah.
sticking in theme.
So, yeah, okay. So,
Do you want me
Dani,
to-
you saw it in 2017, I'm guessing, or
Yes.
around that sort of time. And your impressions of it were what?
It was fine.
Yeah.
That's what my impression was. It wasn't good. It wasn't horrible. It was fine. Which might as well just be like it was horrible, because fine is just no one wants to hear that. I mean, but I guess like, I think because I'm a DC fan at heart, I was just desperately holding on to like some of the good qualities of it. But then watching it just before I watched Snyder Cut, I was like, this movie is shocking. This is so bad. What they did to like the characters, I mean, Batman's bumbling. What even is that? What? Batman's not awkward. Batman's not like trying to string two words together to like talk to Diana. That's
Oh,
not
man,
him.
That stuff was rough.
That was not good, because especially like in some of like the animated world and like other like versions, they actually almost toe with like this serious flirtation of them actually being like a good couple. So it was really just like horrible hitting. The fact that they butchered Cyborg's character and they just put him in there.
So how they butcher his character?
They just cut out everything. I was like, I know his origins. How is everyone else meant to? Because from the information that Whedon gave, like, it was just flashes. And the fact that they didn't elaborate or develop, this is his first time, I think. I think this is the first time he is in live action. And I was just like, but he had to be in it for the Mother Box storyline and a bit of tokenism as well. Otherwise, it was a completely white Justice League. And it didn't give him justice. And that was probably like...
Wow, the cruel irony.
And it didn't give him justice. The constant jokes, because that was the time where they had like one cut, and I remember this now, and they were like, oh, it's had many bad reviews, so like they went in and tried to Marvelize it. They tried to give it the whole light-hearted Marvel.
I can
And
do
DC just doesn't
Are
do
you about
it.
to say what's the timeline?
Yeah, go for it. Let's hit that timeline.
I've got the timeline. So I have a timeline of the Snyder Cut movement as summarized and as incidents are deemed important by myself. So, in March 2016, we get Batman vs. Superman, which is a critical flop, but makes 173 million against 250, which is still big dub, okay? In August 2016, we get Suicide Squad, which makes 746.8 million against 175 million. But of course, it gets critically panned. But it does win an Oscar for Best Makeup.
and
or
it
something.
itself was marvelized heavily, right?
Yes, so that was a film that got reshot and re-edited.
Which I have seen a bit of movement to release the original cut of that as well, which apparently they're definitely not going to
Ayers?
do.
James Ayers or something?
Ayers. But yeah. Yeah, anyway.
Anyway, October of 2016, Warner Bros. Announces its plans to merge with AT&T. So, not explicitly important, but underneath it, it means that the
Bit of
pressures...
corporate reshuffling.
Yeah, the pressures on the movies are getting more and more tense because Marvel at this time is killing it. What comes out in 2016? Something. Thor, something. Some shit with one of them.
Something
superheroes.
important.
Yeah.
Something good.
Marvel's just killing it, is the point, regardless. June 2017, we get Wonder Woman, which makes 822.3 versus 120 mil. And people liked it. Personally, I fell asleep in the cinema. Not complete fault of the film, but I did fall asleep in the cinema. Okay, it got really weird because I remember falling asleep and there were Nazis. I woke up and there's a floating
There were no Nazis in that movie. That was World War One.
Which, actually?
Yeah.
Oh.
And you were asleep earlier than you thought.
There were Germans. Daniel Thulis was floating, and that was the last thing I remember, honestly.
I mean, that just puts like to testament of how interested you were in the movie.
I didn't love it, and like I like the idea of Wonder Woman more than I like the execution. I'm not a huge the DC is well and truly established. It's like CG blue cloud,
And
See,
I will get in on this.
lightning bolt look at this stage.
The whole third act of every DC film being a just CGI shit show is not something I'm particularly into.
Yes, because we like Batman vs.
Yeah.
Superman, as Nick said. What do we like about it? Batman has a really good fight scene, very Arkham-inspired, where he punches the shit out of these people, and then he proceeds to shoot people, which is kind of weird, but, I don't care. Like, gritty Batman's fine with me.
Batman vs Superman was okay. I did like Wonder Woman, but this was also like the first. I'm pretty sure this is the first female superhero movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was before Captain Marvel
Yes.
came out.
But they've only keep going. They've only done Captain Marvel so far, right?
Yeah, they've only done, and they're coming out Black Widow way too many years late.
But it's so late. It's unbelievable to me.
It just shows that it was just a complete afterthought, and like a lot of people just won't go because it's just, you know, I was like, this is too late, too little, too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
After you've had her in everything, and now you're deciding that maybe you should elaborate.
And they kill her off, and they give it in the movie. No one mourns her death at all. It's a bit of a meme.
And then you get that Avengers 2 shot event, Endgame 2, where they get all the women in the epic fight.
The girl power thing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good, but it's also
So when
very heavy-handed.
It's more about like a corporate animal telling you that shot's going to rate well, where you just like,
Yes.
this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not-
like, you're literally doing it for the sake of putting it in there. It's not because you actually...
Exactly, because where are their movies? You know what I mean? Give them a movie and then you can put that scene in.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd like to clarify. I like the idea of Wonder Woman. It's just the execution.
It was good.
Maybe it was a man in the lead role. I'd be more interested.
You know, I can just relate to that a bit better.
No, it's because you hate Chris Pine. That's the main issue.
Fuck
isn't it?
Chris Pine, honestly.
Oh, why do you hate Chris Pine?
Why do you like Chris Pine? Chris Pine is the epitome of a copy and paste
He
hero.
just looks like a sweet person.
To me, the opposite. He's just like he's just like the epitome of that American movie star. He's just like got the hair, he's just got the eyebrows, and he's
See,
just
but that's what
he's walking
Captain
around going like
America
this.
is for me.
No, I agree. I
I'm
have,
just
They're all like that.
I have strong Chris Evans thoughts. Not really. Basically, I think Chris Evans is fine. I just also think that he's generic. Like, you know?
It's solid. Like, he is the embodiment of like the all-American boy.
You know who I like more? Christian Bale.
Get the Welshman to play an
Exactly.
American.
Christian Bale
Get a
would-
Brit to play the all-American superhero as Superman.
If Christian Bale was Captain America, he would have lost all the weight and shrunk down like 7 inches to play that role.
Yeah. Commitment.
Done a
he's a-
Superman and compress his spine.
'Cause he's a method actor, you know what I mean?
In November 2017. So Wonder Woman comes out in June 2017. Wow, I just forgot how condensed this schedule was. So again, August 2016, Suicide Squad. October 2016. No, that's not a thing. Sorry, let me rewind. March 2016, Batman vs. Superman. August 2016, Suicide Squad. June 2017, Wonder Woman. November 2017, Justice League, which makes $657.9 million versus $300. And this is a film that gets critically panned. Not like passionately. It's got like a 6.3 on IMDb or something. But people are talking about the lip. The lip is the most famous part of the film in my recollection.
The lip?
Henry
Oh,
Cavill.
the lip.
And yeah. So
Yeah.
they have two movies. No, not two. Yeah, the two movies, Suicide Squad and Justice League, both almost
mean
as
Wonder
famous
Woman?
for their.
Oh,
no,
sorry, yeah.
almost as famous for their reshoots than it was well known at the time. Like people were talking about it because the Suicide Squad trailer was famous. Do you remember that as well?
Yeah, because it was
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And people loved it.
and then Justice League was come together.
And then I saw it with Stodge and Ben, and we can stop laughing at when Viola Davis goes, or something like that. Okay, November 2017, the film comes out, but in the same month, we get a petition for the Snyder Cut, which reaches 100k signatures. And overall, it reaches around 180k a bit later down the track. In March 2019, Snyder confirms that the Snyder Cut does exist. So 2 years later, sort of.
Do you have
like a
Aquaman
year.
in this at all or not?
No.
I forgot
Where's
about it.
Aquaman slide
Got
in?
it. I have it.
Okay. Let me just say something else in the meantime. So in July 2019, San Diego Comic-Con, a fan-launched crowdfunding campaign promises half of the funds to be spent on billboards and a flying banner ad to promote the Snyder Cut.
What
and
the other half? Oh,
the other half goes to
I was like, what?
the other half goes to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which
that's
is
really
obviously
nice.
another key part of this story, which is really sad to me. The fact that this story's history and its relationship to everyone has to be tied in with such a deeply traumatic moment for Snyder, and he knows that everyone knows it. That's pretty like full on,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Can't be understated that it'd be freaking like terrible existence sort of stuff for Snyder. Like just the idea that your whole vision, your whole work, just everything got so messy in his life. You have to imagine, these things bleeding into each other. Anyway, really sad. that shouldn't be undermined. Is my point.
Yeah.
for sure.
October 2019, New York Comic Con. The fans supporting the Snyder Cut get 2 billboards over Times Square with quotes from the cast and crew. December 2019, they buy another flying banner ad passing over Warner Bros. Studios and directly asking the head of Warner Bros. To release the Snyder Cut. And in January 2020, 4 minutes of ad space is purchased at Riverside Stadium during the FA Cup. So, and then there's obviously like huge Snyder Cut tweet thing going on. There's a huge, well, apparently, if you go on the Wikipedia, essentially, it talks about how people were harassing the telephone lines. Like people want to talk about the toxic, inverted commas, part of this campaign. Let's not acknowledge it. There's shit people in every fandom. End of story.
And this is toxic, and then what you just said about really nice behavior as well. So
People can want a movie without, like it being ruined by shit people. So,
Yeah.
And then I think in Feb it got confirmed.
yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
So Aquaman came out in 2018, and that was a success. Everyone quite enjoyed it, but that was very much a Marvel recipe from like what I remember about it.
So the schedule is so weird that you have Wonder Woman, which is a success, and obviously your production of Wonder Woman is overlapping with your production of Justice League at that point anyway, because they're so close. Feels like a weird way to do it.
Because she gets introduced in Batman vs Superman.
Yeah,
I remember that.
but you need to. But I didn't know watching the Snyder Cut that Aquaman was introduced in Justice League.
Yeah.
Like that's so weird to me.
Yeah, because they were trying to jump on the whole Avengers
They're trying to catch up,
superhero assemble thing. And the reason that made the Marvel Universe so successful is because most of them, other than Black Widow, had their own
Yeah, and people cared
individual
about 'em.
movies before they got there.
Yeah.
And that's why it worked, because they slowly built up these characters. Yes, characters were introduced in other solo movies, but then they were given a solo movie, and Hawkeye. Sorry, I forgot about him.
He doesn't have a
But
movie,
that's how it
right?
works. But then
deserve
DC was like, let's jump on this and try and like get there, because we've already started with Superman. And then I think this is Wonder Woman's first solo movie as well. I could be wrong, because she had the TV show.
Oh, ever?
I think
Really?
so.
Okay. I'm sure there was like a $500K budget 1980s version or something like that.
I think it was the TV show.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I think there might have been an animated version, or this could be complete lies. Who knows? But after that, so Aquaman was a success, and then Shazam came out in 2019, and that was good. That was the only one that I was kind of okay that they had the Marvel recipe, because like just purely because of the nature of Shazam, because he is Billy Batson and he is actually like a kid who literally all of a sudden turns up into like this massive superhero, godlike superhero that's almost as powerful
So
as
it's the
Superman.
story of Big, essentially. I've always thought that. I haven't seen the film, but that's all.
It's good. I quite enjoyed it. And then Birds of Prey add to it.
I like Birds of Prey.
And it got a lot of shit.
I wasn't one of the said shit.
I liked
You
it.
weren't
I
one
was
of the
in
said
I was
shit.
in the US when it came out. I didn't see it when it came out, but I saw it on Netflix last year, and I liked it. I think the color's good. I think the style's cool. I'm down. And Ewan McGregor being kind of weird. I'm on board.
One of my only complaints about that movie is that there wasn't. Two. One serious, because they advertised it as Gotham Sirens, so I was so excited to see Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman all together. I was like, oh,
Yes.
that's so
This
exciting.
is
And
big.
then like they struggled with rights and whatever, so then they put like these other characters that I wasn't as familiar with.
Right, really.
Yeah.
What, DC doesn't have full creative
I
control?
don't know why they decided it. Maybe because they were going to put Catwoman and I don't know.
Something
know.
happened.
It won't be DC. It'll be Warner Brothers. I don't know why they did it. But yeah, they changed it and put in other ones like the Huntress and who I knew, and other characters.
Canary.
It wasn't Black Canary though. I think it was someone else. Or was it Black Canary?
It's Ramona Flowers, I know that.
But yeah, and not enough of Bruce the hyena. I wanted more. I wanted more of Bruce the hyena.
I like the fight scenes, and Ben referenced Corridor Crew in the fight-in scenes. Apparently, a lot of the fights
It's flailing in the background.
Yeah, they
or-
don't act with intention. But the color and stuff like pops, and it's like a fun movie.
It's so funny
I'm on
with
board.
those sort of comments though, because I remember watching Last Jedi and thinking that scene with Rey and Kylo fighting was pretty good. And then like,
Do you mean not Last Jedi?
not
Rise of Skywalker?
No, Last Jedi.
No, The Last
When they
Jedi.
fight the Red
Oh, and
Guards
they kill
or
Snoke.
whatever.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that was cool at the time, but then like when they break it down and they look at people in the background, there's people just like swirling around to look like they're doing shit and stuff like that. It's quite
I was
funny.
watching that Jackie Chan video.
Yeah.
Every frame a painting. There's this fantastic breakdown of Jackie Chan's fight scenes, and it's awesome. Like they say how I've been thinking about this the last few days. Like in a punch, if Jackie delivers a punch, they show the punch, and then they cut to a close up, but they show a few frames, so they watch the punch happen again in slow motion. And so it's this point that current action movies and superhero movies, by extension, don't show impact because they cut like sequentially. So they go, if the fist makes contact, then the next shot should show the fist pulling through. But then viewers need to see the punch twice to actually understand the weight of it. And that's just like a huge glass shattering moment for me. Like even in this video, just delivering that. Like you watch these fights and you're like, oh, everyone's just flying around for no reason. You don't actually get the impact because unless you're going wide to close, there's not like a change that is ramping up, you know? It's always a pull back or something like that. Anyway, I like that point.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to play MC and let's get on track for a little bit before we can call it a break.
Back on track.
Okay.
Back on track. We're back on
Back on track. So we've got that timeline, which seems like a pretty unorganized way of doing things. Is probably reflective of the whole.
I have one
lack
more
of
thing to
organisation.
sidetrack this.
Okay.
I wonder how COVID is going to relate to all of this superhero chronology. Because if I can say one thing, it's that superhero fatigue is very real for a few people, I think. I think it is a growing audience that people are going, oh, I'm a bit sick of shit. I feel like COVID may have been good for Marvel. Like the fact that there hasn't been a Marvel movie in a while. Because I just read you 3 years of movies, yet there were 6 epic movies in there that were really important to the franchise. So this has given major studios a chance to catch a breather, audiences to get a bit more of that hunger for cinema again. I'm interested to watch this space, basically.
I think that, yes, COVID and definitely this whole streaming platform and what Snyder Cut has allowed for the DC, not talking about Marvel, but for the DC, it's given a different representation of a darker version, and it has rejuvenated what was a dying franchise, and it has given them time to sit there and fix up things and allow for a more expressive way. And for Marvel, yeah, I think there was getting fatigued because pretty much after Endgame, I was like, I think I'm going to call it quits. I don't think I'm going to watch anything else other than Loki. But because there has been no good TV, new TV come out, or like any new movies come out, I'm almost like creeping back into the Marvel. And I was a person who was like, I think I'm done with this. And I'm already like, I might as well watch it and see what they do. And I'm also curious to know what they're going to do with Black Panther because I'm following that storyline and like, yeah. So there's definitely truth in there because I'm a living example of like, yeah, maybe I'll start watching Marvel again.
I also think that no one, you can't kick the bug properly. Like I thought I'd kick the bug with Marvel, but then they were all on Netflix. So I watched Winter Soldier, I watched Civil War, I watched all those ones like a few years after they'd come out, and then you just catch up again and suddenly you're fine but the reality is you're never going to completely shut off, and that's just the pulling power of these films. But I did love your point there that DC has had a reboot, and DC, you can't tell me, well, you can tell me, I don't think that they will. I think they're going to lean into this dark thing. I've always thought that's their angle, but they didn't know it. So I think that this is them, and this is the audiences going, we want this darker side of DC. That's where the product differentiation exists.
You always had like people like Zack Snyder who was like, it's a darker universe, like The Dark Knight is still like a dark universe, is in the title. And you have the execs up at the top who are like, yeah, but the Marvel recipe works. And like, yeah, but we need to be different. And they're like, no, just do it this way. And it ruins the art of the movie. And it is darker. They are, yes, Marvel is actually like very powered, and they are on a base level more overpowered. So like as well, and it's a hard translation between. It's always hard to show live action when the characters are that powerful, because it almost makes it hard to believe. Not that you're believing, but kind of at the back of my mind. Oh yeah, that kind of makes sense.
It's all about like proportionality.
Yeah.
Like you've got to believe at least in that world that it makes sense, because if you can't even believe in this world where superheroes exist, that it doesn't feel real, then there's something off. And that's what, comparatively, the Snyder Cut does a lot better than the other one.
Well played.
Thank you. This is why they pay me the big bucks.
It's the transition.
And so there's a good video on YouTube we watched before by the Corridor Crew guys where they compare just a couple shots in the CG in it. And even just if you look up YouTube and you're comparing scene frame by frame, it's super interesting to watch. So recommend definitely. And all the shots are so much longer. Every fight scene in the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League is like twice as long, because every scene just plays out to its like actual optimum length. It's not cut for snappiness. And so you get all that proportionality back that it's like completely lost in the other one. Like the stakes in the first one, there feels like there's zero stakes at all. Even like...
So, key point of trivia. Sources say that they intended to release it as a two-parter. I think that's quite...
The original
Justice League. Because I thought, watching the Snyder Cut, I was like, what the hell? How did they get a budget to shoot a movie that is going to not go for 2 hours, but is supposed to go for 2 hours? That just made no sense to me. How do you have this much leftover footage because you can't release a movie that goes for 3 hours. I know that. You can't make a movie that goes for more than 2.5. You can't really make a movie that goes for more than 2. Like, how did they... there must have been a script at some stage, and everyone... Because there's this thing where each page is worth 1 minute. You can't tell me that there was a script that was 90 pages and it took 3 hours of footage to film. They knew it would take that long.
And even what you're saying is that, the Deathstroke scene at the end is different in the other version. So it's like, okay, they're recording alternate versions of each scene as well, where the dialogue is substantially different and sets up a different storyline as well. It's like, how is that happening? That's so weird to me.
Isn't that... I'm like, I don't know, I could be completely wrong here, but wasn't there also alternate endings to a lot of Marvel movies in Endgame just for like spoiler things and people alternating? And
I guess
that
so,
is
probably.
a new theme of
you gotta see
filming
what
tons of... Pardon?
Well, I mean, you put out your feelers and see what kind of looks like the best
yeah,
option.
and like there has been like lots of filming of alternate endings. I do think I vaguely remember when I first looked it up, and they did already like on like, when you look on the internet and they're like, that it comes up all in the top little movie things when you first look. I think I do remember them having a part 1, part 2, and it hadn't even been released yet. I think there was always the intention, because they always had the idea of franchising it. So maybe they did do that whole thing where they'll like film movie 1 and 2, which is a very common theme at the moment. Didn't they do that to Endgame? And didn't they...
It was a bit bigger.
Yeah,
it felt like Harry Potter was the last.
Harry Potter was filmed
Twilight.
all together. 50 Shades of Grey was filmed all together. Like, they have... That's a bit of a trend. So maybe it was. Maybe they were filming alternative narratives. Maybe they just gave him like, off you go, do whatever you want.
Which
we
makes
trust
no
you.
sense.
I will
That
say,
just won't happen. They might do it in the future.
The only person Warner Bros. Lets that happen with is Nolan. And even Nolan is about to be reeled in because of Tenet. We'll see what happens.
one thing I will say is that, like, if you're trying to like emulate the extended universe sort of formula for Marvel, the Whedon cut does a really bad job of setting anything else up or like implying that there's anything more at hand. Do you know what I mean?
Why
it's
would
such
you
a
cut Darkseid? It's so dumb.
It's such a
Darkseid.
Darkseid.
When you say Darkseid, it's spelt Darkseid. Is that why you're pronouncing it like that?
Fuck, I don't know.
It's like such a standalone an hour 55 thing where it doesn't even feel connected to
Feels like an
anything.
It's a
episode.
sequel to a movie that you haven't seen.
It's so weird. And it's just
That's
like,
true.
what's the purpose of it? It almost feels like it was like an attempt to not fail as hard as they thought they were going to fail or something like that, versus it actually trying to be anything.
It
feels
was
like it's
panic
not,
mode.
It doesn't feel like it's trying to be
It was
anything.
panic mode.
I don't know. Like you were watching it like, oh, it's not that bad. I mean, I really didn't like it.
When I
thought
was saying
very
it was
bad.
not that bad, it was not real because as soon as I thought about it for more than 10 seconds, it was very much like I wasn't enjoying watching the movie.
It just looked.
You know what I mean? Like I was.
That's what I mean. It was fine.
The only novelty was watching it in comparison to the other movie, and then Nick and I sharing eye contact every 40 seconds when there was a joke put in there. Let's relive some of the worst jokes. There's Batman getting thrown away by Superman going, "Oh yeah,
something's definitely
something's
bleeding."
definitely bleeding." There is.
I didn't say
There's
you
the
weren't.
Flash
I didn't say we weren't friends.
Yeah.
There's the Flash having
Pet
like
Cemetery?
a weird. Yeah, no. When they're digging, well, yes, but when they're digging the grave,
yeah.
he goes for a fist bump with Cyborg, and then Cyborg like looks at him, and then he goes, "What's he say?
Racial tension. or
Racial
something
tension, some weird shit like that." It's like,
I think I blocked that one out.
oh, that one felt really bad to me,
Very,
and then
yeah,
let alone the
clunky.
tone deafness of the Flash falling on Wonder Woman thing. So that the video before spoiled it, but there's like.
Joss Whedon does that, isn't that a thing?
No, but Gal Gadot didn't support it, and so it's
Yeah.
a body double of Wonder Woman on the ground when Flash lays on her, and
So weird.
very bad.
There's so many questionable things in that movie.
The Flash is just a walk-in shit take, and he's the brunch. The brunch is so overwhelmingly bad joke. I was driving, and it just hit me, and I'm like, oh.
Like Barry Allen isn't meant to be that socially awkward as well, which is kind of annoying.
Every joke in this film is a punchline, but there's no setup.
Yeah.
That's what we said watching this. It's just
Superman. Oh yeah, I felt that. I had hurt after like they had thing, and they started giggling about separating the mother box, and you're just like,
no, but they just say things like it's.
I really like living.
It's like a bad joke of recording jokes post film, you know? Like it would make sense if the scene before related to the joke, but the scene before doesn't relate to the joke. Superman is fighting everyone and they're concerned. Suddenly Batman's laughing about it. And then it's just so weird. There's this type of comedy. What was the other thing it was in? You were saying
King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying there's a scene in King Kong where they like it's not even about the jokes. It's not even about the writing. It's about the setup being like resembling a setup that you're used to in other films where you're ready for a punchline and when you're kind of out and someone's being a bit funny and they're setting up this joke and you laugh straight away even though what they said isn't necessarily funny because it's a setup. It's kind of like that except they're just like doing something you've seen in another film before and you found funny and they're counting on you not even thinking about what you're hearing and just laughing about something being in this comedic formula. So in King Kong, there was this thing where King Kong, like, I don't know, drinks the blood of something and they cut to this girl and you're like, okay, here's a joke. And she goes, that's gross. And it's like they didn't even bother to write the joke. And that's what Justice League is like. They didn't even bother to write the jokes. They just went, okay, this is where we need a joke. We need a joke here. We need a joke here. And
But I don't think they went, we need a joke here. They went, and that's the timer. We need a joke here. And 10 minutes, we need a joke here. Because there's no beats to the actual joke. There's no peak and trough to the jokes. There's no like, let's get to a serious moment. Let's come down with a joke. There's just jokes. Like they just exist at different times in the film that don't make sense. Like the Flash and the Superman stuff is really weird right at the end of the film because it's kind of an important moment in the film that they're fighting
when they go save the people.
Steppenwolf and they go Superman leaves and then comes back in the middle of the climactic fight.
Because Batman goes, we need you to distract him. And then he's like, they're civilians.
And there was like, when Batman was doing the pep talk to like Barry, he was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And like Barry's motivation and Batman's just like, go save one person and then save them. Barry doesn't need motivation. Barry is a good character. You're butchering his character.
I didn't hate that, not gonna lie.
They're also that they're like, I'm pretty sure they're discussing while Steppenwolf is torturing someone and they're like, okay, what's the plan? And he's literally about to kill him
true.
and you're just like,
there's no urgency. The film
Stop
has
it?
the film
I
has
don't know.
no sense of stakes. Like even the introduction of the film's really weird. Batman arrests Bill Tench from Mindhunter and there's a flying winged demon man and you're like, something's astray here. Like there's no context. If the Snyder Cut nails one thing, it's that they make everything feel epic and they really give you a sense of gravity to the villain and shit, there's this big villain coming. Look at what he's done. He's just destroyed all of the Amazonians and their secret temple. And it's just like there's this weight behind the threat of the villain. The threat in the Justice League 2017 is like, there's a weird flying rat thing in like villain man in the sky, so something must be bad. It's really just trading on your ideas of what is supposed to happen in a superhero film. Oh, there's an alien man. Must mean a villain's coming.
Yeah.
It could be a friendly alien for all we know.
It's like they're doing this like assembling the team thing without committing to assembling the team. They're
Because
doing this,
there's no
there's a
urgency.
baddie, but they're not committing to having a baddie. And it's just, they're not committing to anything. It's just a nothing. And you know, one of the worst moments is definitely the end monologue by Lois Lane about fuck knows what she's talking about.
Oh my god. I couldn't tell you a word besides hope and fear that she said in that speech.
I actually can't remember it.
Yeah.
It is so forgettable. It is John Dorian in Scrubs level summary. Like, it's literally her talking over shots that don't relate to it with no music, unfortunately. And
Big thing.
it's the most meaningless words I've ever heard on a film. Like, you know, at least I think because you also don't even see her lips move. I think if you're going to do an expressive monologue at the end of a film, you need to watch the person who's doing the monologue to at least get a sense of the monologue, to catch the trail of the thinking here. But they literally showing it over shots, and she's not even in it. She's going,
how about with
It's like, who do you think you are, Optimus Prime? Monologuing at the end of a movie. Like,
at least his voice sounds pretty like,
yeah.
we will come back to this earth.
Another thing that was really horrible with it was the whole, I just hate what they did to Batman. And maybe if they like released the Snyder cut straight off, maybe Ben Affleck would still be Batman because he wouldn't have quit after all the criticism.
Ben Affleck as Batman? Big question.
Mixed feelings, because physically he is what Batman should look like at that point. He is old. He's
Looks like Dark Knight Returns Batman, doesn't he?
Pardon? Yeah. Oh, the comics.
The Frank Miller comic.
Yeah. The comics, or like the animated movies.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he's meant to be old. He's meant to have he's meant to have worked the street. He's not meant to be like a spring chicken. He is kind of old and tired, and they got the height right as well, and they have the whole look. And I was like, aesthetically, this is a very good Batman. And then they had him like being an awkward, fumbling man who was socially awkward and couldn't string two things together. I was like, if Batman is like, if someone says something snarky to Batman, Batman will just look at you. And then you'll just like be like, oh my God, I will never say that again.
I like that.
Oh my God. Is he going to kill me? He might eat me. I don't know. That's what Batman's meant to be. And the whole storyline of Batman being like, but I'm not him. I'm not Superman. We can't do this without Superman. He was more human. He brought us all together. That really, really irked me up the wrong way, because the Justice League cannot work without Batman. Batman is the one that brings them all together. He's the one that funds it. He's the one that brings them all together. He is the leader. He like keeps Clark in check. He keeps like Wonder Woman all together. He is the glue. And in the Whedon cut, it was just like, we need Superman because I don't know what I'm doing. And it was just horrible.
If Batman doesn't have confidence, what does he have?
Yeah.
That's
money.
your point, right?
That's it.
No,
yeah.
but even money
gives you confidence.
Because even money shouldn't, like you said, he funds the Justice League, which I don't doubt that he does. But to me, that doesn't even make sense, because like they can take
Wayne
meetings.
Corporation.
They can take a meeting in a park and it wouldn't matter, because these people somehow they have their budget for their super suits unrelated to Batman. Like, they don't need budget; they have superpowers. You know
the
what I mean?
Watchtower's out of space, so that's how they don't get like spied.
They hang out. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
technically.
That's
So-
an important part.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
they live in a glacier at one stage? In one of them, they have like a giant ice base. Or
Is
something?
that Superman's solitude?
Maybe I've seen
I
that
think that's-
representation in a few.
I think that's the
things to me.
solitude. So they have like,
Including the Lego Batman movie. You know, when him and
I haven't seen
Robin
it.
sneak into.
so they have like the Justice League temple, and what the public thinks is their headquarters, but it's just pretty much for show and has massive statues of them because egos. And then they actually go up to the Watchtower, which is out in space, for like proper privacy, you know, so they can monitor at all things.
With Elon Musk, he
Yeah.
flies them up in the battery charged jets.
But yeah, I don't know. At the end of it, they were prepping the Justice League to be at Wayne Manor.
Yes.
So yeah, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
I
I'll
thought
think about that.
I thought Wonder Woman was pregnant because she goes, "We'll need seats for one more." And
She
then-
was pregnant.
In real life.
Yeah, in real life.
I was like, yeah, Tom said then, I was like, I can't tell that she's pregnant. Like, I know she was meant to be, but...
I just thought it was
Yeah.
them trading on the Batman Wonder Woman sexual chemistry. It's like,
Yeah,
we
no-
need space for a little Wonder Man.
Oh, yeah, they did actually kind of incorporate that, didn't they, in the Snyder Cut?
You
The
know what
Snyder
else?
Cut was
Appreciate-
like real tension versus like in the Whedon Cut, she like stretches his arm out and shit. It's, just
It's
so
like movie
weird.
tension. Yeah.
Yeah.
The tension in the Snyder Cut goes as far as going eligible bachelor, eligible bachelor.
And then they get along.
All right.
And they have a nice friendship.
I'm gonna have one last dig, and then we need to get our verdicts in on this one and take a time out. So I will just say that the Whedon Cut looks fucking terrible. It is
The
a
grade.
hideous movie to watch.
The lips, you know what it irked me about the grade? The lips.
I-
'Cause
I'm-
everyone's got freaking like bright purple pinky lips.
The whole end climax is like in this red mist, which looks really super ugly. And the other thing is the green screening they did. It's like the worst green screen I've ever seen in my life. Like it's so bad. You can see where they put green screen in. Like it stands out to you so much.
It's not their fault. Green screening is hard, essentially. I think that's the punchline.
yeah, it
Because
was.
they're putting stuff that was actually shot in Iceland next to stuff that wasn't shot in Iceland, and that's why it looks shit. So
It was just not pleasant on the eyes. It was harsh. It wasn't like a. It was. I need to put on my glasses because my eyes are hurting.
But it's,
kind of-
yeah, what a weird thing to do. Like you can make it like to go the inverse of Snyder is weird. Like sure you just go somewhere in the middle where you're not like
have you ever worked on something for ages and put a lot of time into it and then gone, instead of committing to what I've made, I'm going to redo what I've made the night before the deadline? No.
Yes.
No one ever has done that. You've gone the other
Dani
way.
just said she did that.
No, I know of that. I do know people that have done
You
that,
don't do
and
that.
they regret their decision
You stick
after
with the
it.
thing that you did and you ride the bumps of the shitness of the thing that you did. That is how people operate.
I know people in art school that did that, and it never worked out for them.
There you go.
Exactly.
All right. I'm just going to ask everybody to give a rating for 27 Justice League, and then we'll take a pause till our next episode. So, Dani, why don't you start us off as our guest?
Oh, half a star.
Is that canon in your rating system? Half a star?
Yeah. If you had asked me before my last viewing of it, I would have maybe given it like a 3. But after rewatching it and like coming in from a non-sympathetic DC point of view, and after having watched a few of the other ones, I was like, this was just shocking. These jokes are uncomfortable. The storyline is horrible. They've like mangled the secondary characters of Cyborg, Aquaman, and the Flash. And yeah, I mean, if I could, I would just give it like the little top bit of the star.
Here I thought
1/5
I
of
thought
it.
I was
just
going to be
hate
the
it.
one who was too brutal,
Yeah.
but I guess not. My review is going to be more positive than Dani's. So,
Yes,
right,
yes,
Tom, what do
yes.
you give it?
I'm drawn to visions of my original reviews, which were much more savage, and reminded that I don't want to watch this movie again.
You will never watch this again unless you have to.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe only like 2 other movies out there in nerdy culture for me that I hate more than this.
This movie has no purpose anymore. Like, why watch it is the end. Like, once you've watched it to compare with the other one, you don't need to watch it again.
Snyder's canon.
Yeah, of course. I think I'll give it 1.5.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 1.5 as well. It was not a fun experience. I mean, it was a fun experience, but not for the right reasons. It's just bad, you know. And there's been a lot of talk about people being like, you know, is the Snyder Cut good is it just because it's better than the other one? And having watched it the other way around, it's like, you know, this one is not just bad. It's a bad film,
atrocity.
and it sucks anyway.
This concludes
Concludes
one.
part 1 because we are getting on time wise. I guess we should do plugs at the end of this episode anyway.
Are they getting released at the same time or not?
Depends how quick on the editing I am.
And
Probably not.
okay, well that ends part 1.
Then another classic. Goodbye.
Another classic or a fresh one. If we knew what we wanted, you'd be useless. Tell us what's in us who's done another antique shipwreck you spun. It's a Friday or a Tuesday.